from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome back to another edition of the Rutgers Rant. I'm joined as always, James Kratz, Keith Sargent, and I love the way I take a week off. I'm floating out on a raft in Maine, and you know what? Apparently, I could have just floated off into oblivion, and you guys wouldn't care. You out-higged me. Sergeant, I'm in charge now. We don't need Politi anymore. It's great. Just like that, bam, I'm done.
I mean,
one episode off, and I'm done.
Well, who invited you back? That's my question. How'd you get back here?
I love it. That's a great thing. That's what my family was asking too. Whoa, hello.
Hey.
How are you guys doing? Kratz, what'd I miss? Everything good? You have a good time, good summer so far with, camp, heating up, fun stuff going on?
Yeah, we got a quarterback controversy since you left. Yeah.
I saw that. That is interesting. And, this is going to be funny. Like, we talked a lot about our Project Tech service and for $5 a month. And my thought about what that would be for the diehards who want to get the information first. But I was actually in Maine. So I'm unplugged a little bit, and I'm learning about stuff that's happening through this tech service. So I think, it kind of illustrates just that you don't have to be like some, foaming at the mouth diehard to appreciate what's going on. It was just nice to have, okay, here's something big. There's a quarterback controversy, and it's getting texted to me on my phone. So I encourage all you guys to sign up again, use the code podcast, and join us for what is becoming a fun little feature.
Very quick, Steve. We actually have a special landing spot if you're interested in subscribing.
Oh, wow, okay.
Very simple. NJ.com/text. Simple as that.
That's
Go ahead there.
Head there. All right. So let's dive right back in because, I am kind of, I'm of two minds here with the quarterback controversy. And my first one, as I'm looking at it from 30,000 feet, is that it's really not a great sign, and I mean that sincerely. Like if McLean Carter can come in, in April, grab this playbook, and already, that it's kind of seemed like a dead even heat, that doesn't speak well for, what's happened with Art Sikowski. And I wonder if we're overlooking the bigger picture here in that, it's not which guy's going to win it. It's that, oh boy, we're entering another season where Rutgers doesn't have a Big Ten passer. Is that a big concern, guys?
I think so. I think it's a big concern. I mean, this is sort of a pivotal season for Rutgers, and look, it's kind of difficult to draw too much because we've only seen so much. What we do know is basically Art was taking all the first team snaps, or basically the first half of training camp. I mean, give or take one or two practices. They had the open, fan appreciation day practice. Carter looked really good with the second team offense against the second team defense, and they've started to give him first team reps since then. And we've gotten to a point where they had a second scrimmage last week, which was not open to the media, where it was 50-50 from everything we've been told. So now we're in this time frame. Today, we're taping this on Monday the 19th. Ash has announced his starting quarterbacks in his first 3 years, I think the 21st,
wow,
the 22nd, and the 24th. So this is the week. They got a mock game Friday, because Friday will be a week before the season opener. I would guess that they're going to have I would assume they're not going to go to a mock game without having told someone they're the starting quarterback. I think the big question is Ash going to try to play this thing coy and keep UMass guessing up until kickoff? I tend to think not, because he was asked on Thursday, would you play both of them in the UMass game and kind of extend the competition? And he didn't take that opportunity to do the whole, we could do what we'll see, like he didn't try to play the game. So I had it at 52-48. Art would be the starter over Carter. I think it's 50-50. I think there are arguments to be made on both sides. I think the entire fan base wants Carter because they saw the kid throw a couple of deep passes in the Fan Appreciation Day, and they saw Art throwing 18 picks last year.
Right.
That's
simple. The thing that strikes me odd, and sorry, you can answer this, and we talked about this a lot, is that why wouldn't they use both quarterbacks against UMass? Why wouldn't they use both quarterbacks against Iowa? It seems to me you really need to have a starting quarterback against Boston College, because that's the game the season hinges on. You should beat UMass. You're probably not going to beat Iowa. Give them both a chance. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. And, I mean, who knows what, Keith Sargent, Steve Politi, or James Kratz knows, right? I mean, we're just three schmo sports writers. But that being said, I asked Jerry DiNardo, who actually coached football, who's like a respected Big Ten analyst, and that's what he says they should do. I mean, he basically said that you can't really get a good judge of a quarterback competition, a true one, in training camp because guess what, guys? You're not hitting the quarterback. So when you're not hitting the quarterback, it stands to reason that Art Sikowski or McLean Carter, for that matter, are going to be comfortable. They're going to be able to read the defense better. And then what happens in week one? Guess what? All of a sudden, teams start blitzing, and I kind of imagine that considering the question marks that Rutgers has with this offensive line, teams are going to be sending some pressure. So if I was Chris Ash, you know that unless something totally wacky happens, Rutgers has so much more talent than UMass. They should win that game going away. I'd use week one as a competition. Whoever plays best in week one, and by that I mean give Sikowski the first two series, bring in McLean Carter for series 3, and then judge it from that.
Right. And if one guy really struggles or one guy really does well, and I guess this is another point that, the fans are watching him against the second team defense, which, I mean, on paper, certainly, I haven't seen as much as you guys, Kratzy, so you speak to this more, is a lot inferior to the first team defense, obviously, at Rutgers. So what they're seeing, for what they've seen and what got them excited really is him picking on some kids who shouldn't be out there.
Correct. And Sarge, correct me if I'm wrong, from what we've seen, whether it be the open practice open to media or the fan appreciation day, I don't think we've seen Art lead the second team offense against the second team defense.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
For all I know, I mean, if Art's doing that in practice, Art could be throwing the ball all over the place. We know that he had a touchdown dropped on him in the red zone. We were told by a few sources in the scrimmage last week. So it's an incomplete picture that we have. I think it's 50-50. And look, I think I've written this, and I know a lot of people don't like it. If you want to start Carter and say you got to win now, it's year 4, that's fine. Go to a bowl game.
Yeah.
Don't start Carter to win 4 games and then say, hey, significant improvement. Like, go to a bowl game.
I totally agree.
Brought the kid in. He's a fifth-year senior. He's started in the Big 12. All right, great. Go to a bowl game, guys.
And the reason is because at the end of it, you're in the same situation. So if you start McLean Carter and you win 4 games, I get it that Art's still in the program, but you still don't have a quarterback for 2020. You're still in the same situation. So, I mean, I follow you completely. I know fans, I get a couple of on Twitter getting arguments about, well, look what Oklahoma does. Oklahoma.
Well, I just want to say one thing real quick. Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, I believe, they were both on campus for a year.
Yes.
Before they started. So I'm going to guess that the Sooner coaching staff did a little bit of development with those guys. Jalen Hurts is a little different.
Yep.
But Mayfield and Murray transferred in. I think Mayfield had to sit out. I think Murray was kind of a backup for a year. They did a little bit of lifting.
A program like Rutgers. The point being, a program like Rutgers, its best path is developing these kids, recruiting them, developing them, and getting to a point where we have a 3-year player. And that's what they're trying to do with Art, and they failed. They still haven't been able to do that. Sarge, gun to your head. Who is the starter against UMass?
Sikowski. I'm still, I'm a little bit more 52. I said 52-48 the other day. I'll stick by that. It goes back to, I haven't heard what John McNulty's take is. Everything that we've kind of, heard from him so far, he kind of leads you to believe that he's still, in the Art camp. I think when the jury comes back, I think it's going to be Art.
Wow. Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough. All right. So, the big story though, in my mind, the one that when it hit while I was sitting there, in my inner tube, on this beautiful lake in Maine, trying not to pay attention, was the ticket story that you did. I'm going to call it a Sarge bomb in the Woj bomb spirit. And I don't think it got enough attention. I really don't, because I read it and my first reaction was just wow at the numbers, to see not just the, year-to-year decline in season ticket counts. And I'll have Sarge give the details here in a minute, but just the overall decline from when the Big Ten started, and some of that's natural. I get it. But also, the broader implication of what this means for the program. The millions of dollars that you're going to lose now because the season ticket base is eroding. And now we are seeing just what this, the Ash era so far, what the 7-29, whatever the record is, has done to the business of Rutgers sports. And it's really bad. I think that's an understatement. Sarge, you mean just give us some basic details and the broader perspective?
Yeah, the basic details would be quick with this is their season ticket base is down to 16,000 and change. Keep in mind they started at 31,000 in 2015. That was while Kyle Flood was still the head coach. When Chris Ash arrived, it went down from 31 to 28 in year one, 28,000. And it's gone down every year since then. Now they're down to 16, which is it's almost a 50% drop, which is not good. If you look at the numbers within the numbers, the actual attendance at games, everyone has always scoffed at the announced attendance. Well, you have every reason to scoff because, like the Northwestern game had just over 20,000. Some of these games that are in the 18, 19,000 range. We're talking about a stadium that has a 54,000 seat capacity, right? I mean, it's just, the numbers are mind boggling. It, speaks to just the general, disinterest, I guess, right now with the football program. Speaks to, I guess, in some respects, why would you be a season ticket holder when you can get tickets over on StubHub or the secondary market?
Sure, and not pay that seat donation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you touched on the seat donation. The bigger picture in why, and it's something that we'll explore down the line. But I was told by a few insiders after my story ran that we were just scratching at the surface of what it means from a financial standpoint. Obviously, and I reported within the story. If you just look at, the ticket line on Rutgers' fiscal year report to go from 13 million as a high down to 11 and down to 8.4 in the most recent year, that was 2017. That's one thing. So everyone anticipates a drop. Maybe it goes down to, as low as 6 million figure, right? If it goes down to 6 million, so you're talking maybe almost a $2 million loss in ticket revenue. Then you're talking about parking and concessions, which is probably another $1 million. So then you're talking about another big aspect. You mentioned the seat gifts. A lot of their fundraising, it was way more so in the Julie Herman era. But even still now, especially their operational costs, a lot of it is tied to those seat gifts. And what we're talking about there is you buy a season ticket, and depending on what section, it could be as high as $100 per seat. As low as I think $25 per seat in the upper corners of the upper deck. But every season ticket has a seat gift. That is fundraising money that Rutgers has lost. So we could be talking, the way it was estimated to me, you could be talking, $4, $5, $6 million just in this past year alone. That's a huge loss.
Right. And for a program that's grappling with paying a $7 million buyout for the head coach if it goes sour, I guess Kratz, thinking along those lines, this seems like the first loss of the year for Chris Ash. A head coach is, he's not the guy selling tickets, but he is the guy selling tickets. I'm saying it's a trend that can't continue. I mean,
he doesn't sell tickets, but he's responsible for creating the product that sells the tickets. And we're not hiding any secrets here. There's not a lot of buzz about this football team.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a lot of excitement. There's not a lot of juice. It's diehards. It's friends and family at this point.
Well, I don't think anyone. I mean, we were at the Fan Appreciation Day, Kratz. What do you think the number was? If you're going to be totally fair, and I think a couple of Rutgers insiders, when they asked me, I said maybe 1,500, and they're like, there was not 1,500. Maybe there was probably less than 1,000. But what do you think that number was, Kratz, for Fan Appreciation Day? A beautiful day, couldn't be better weather. It was well advertised. What do you think that number was?
I wrote 450. I would be willing to round it up to like 500 or 600. And that was a number I bounced off some people who were there, and they said that sounded about right. Obviously there could have been people hiding, in the shade on the other side of the stadium. I mean, everyone was confined to the far at the side of the stadium opposite the press box. So, yeah, I just think it's not only that, but it's like, and, I was thinking about this, I had the radio on the other day. Army football is right down the road, and they're winning 10 games every year, and they're advertising on WFAN. I talked to a Power 5 coach who said he thinks Temple could win 10 games this year with all the talent that Matt Rule and Jeff Collins have kind of stacked up there. Syracuse is exciting. It's not as close, but my point is there's other college football options in the area if people just want to go to a game that are maybe more exciting and kind of maybe more prominent than Rutgers at this point. So they need to get that buzz back, and obviously winning is the perfect way to do it. But I just look at this team, and I just don't share the optimism some fans have that a big bounce back is coming. And
I think, it's funny. This is the other thing when I listened to your guys' podcast that jumped out at me were actually 5 words that you said during the podcast, Cratch, when you said that the offensive line is bad. Well, it was a direct quote, and I listened to it. I'm like, that's like a pack up the moving vans quote. I mean, if the offensive line's bad, then there's really no hope for either quarterback, and you can't really build a running game. You're not going to upset a high level Big Ten team. Has it gotten better since in the last few days? I mean, I haven't watched a lot of it, but is there anything that there's anything that could change that would make it that would give you some hope?
I mean, Ash said he thought the line was better in the scrimmage that we didn't watch last week. Okay. And he also made a comment that, the open practice was actually one of the offense's worst days of the summer.
Okay.
That being said, I haven't been impressed by the offensive line since the spring.
Right. So, it was a problem then. Yeah.
It was a problem last year. Jonah Jackson left, and I still think it's a problem.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure maybe I caught him on a bad day. The one day I happened to see them in full, and maybe they're not going to be as poor as they were that day. But I don't look at that unit. I don't see a dominant unit by any stretch of the imagination. And you're right. The 2 quarterbacks, they need the protection. And if you want to be this power run game, you got to move bodies up front. And I don't see Rutgers moving by. And they're going to play some big boys, some big-time pass rushers this year.
Right.
Some very stout defensive lines. And I just don't see how they're going to really be a dominant team in the trenches, which is what you need to be in the Big Ten.
So let me just add one thing about the offensive line with regards to I think there's a feeling inside the program that Raekwon O'Neal, even though he's a first-year starter in the Big Ten, there's a feeling inside the program that he's going to be pretty good. Over on the right side of the offensive line, there's not that same feeling with Kamal Seymour. Even though he started 2 years, he's heading into his 3rd year. There's not that same confidence level. I think we've seen what he is on the football field. He's had his struggles the last couple of years. The point I'm trying to make is, what are the 2 differences between the 2 quarterbacks? One is lefty, one is righty. So if McLean Carter was to start, Kamal Seymour would be protecting his blind side. Cratch, I'm just curious. So you think that will play in any way in the quarterback decision? The fact that maybe there is a weaker offensive lineman protecting the blind side of a lefty quarterback?
It could, although, from my time in the NFL, I think nowadays a lot of coaches, we kind of think of left tackle being the premier spot and right tackle being, the not as premier spot because most quarterbacks are right-handed. But nowadays, you have elite pass rushers on both sides. So, and both guys, so I don't really know if the blind side is as big of a factor in today's game as it maybe was 10, 15 years ago. I certainly don't think it's necessarily a big enough factor that you're going to decide who's going to play quarterback, because I would think that the quarterbacks on their own merit would determine who you're picking, or if you're going to play both of them because it's that close. I don't think they're going to get that granular with this decision, but hey, I think you have to consider it because you have to flip the whole scheme, if you have a left-handed quarterback, and obviously you're going to have a different blindside protector. I think it's something they have to talk about, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be the deal breaker for Carter either way.
Yeah, it's more than, remember, it's more than just the blocking. It's everything. It's a great point. And it's one more thing to think about with an offense that already has so much uncertainty. So that's a great point, Sarge. All right. I thought we would have some fun here. We're getting close to the season now. People, are focused in on Rutgers and what Rutgers is doing. And I certainly understand that, but I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to, look at the schedule and go team by team, break it down. Next week, just to tease you, loyal listeners, we will do our Mike and the Mad Dog. That's a win, Mike. That's a win. That's a win, through the schedule. But before we get to that, I thought it would be a good idea to go through each team and give us a little, something that's going on this summer, some facts about the team in little 30 seconds, or less intervals. So, let's do it, guys. All right. We're going to start with Cratch, UMass, go.
So they have a 3-man quarterback battle. 2 of them are New Jersey guys. Lawrenceville's Randall West, who I named Star Ledger Prep Player of the Year in 2012.
Dating yourself.
Yes, dating myself. Paramus Catholic's Andrew Brito, who was at won a state title at PC in his only year as a starter, I believe as a senior, was at a junior college in California last year, transferred into UMass. He's in the mix. Michael Curtis is the incumbent starter. He's also in that mix. He started for UMass a couple games last year. They had a really good offense last year. Andy Isabel was a second-round pick, one of the All-American wide receiver there. But they also gave up a lot of points, and that's why I come to my second little factoid. They've lost every road opener they've played since they joined the FBS level.
Wow.
Average margin of defeat, 26 points.
Well, there you go. All right. Iowa, Sarge, go.
Yeah, the storyline is obviously going to be Chris Ash's homecoming. He grew up in Ottumwa, Iowa, which I know, Steve, that might be your favorite name for any city anywhere in America.
Absolutely.
I did some digging. It's about an hour and 40 minutes from the University of Iowa's Kinnick Stadium.
Road trip.
Yeah, it sounds like a road trip. We might go to the hometown of Chris Ash. Either that or maybe go to the Field of Dreams. But also, Ottumwa, the current population of 24,500 is about 10,000 more than the Rutgers season ticket base right now.
Ouch.
So on the field, Iowa is led by an all Big Ten caliber quarterback, Nate Stanley, and are widely predicted to finish no worse than in the top 3 of the West Division this season.
All right, Boston College is me. Now, we all know this is the pivotal game. We've talked about it ad nauseum. We all know that Anthony Brown is a top-level ACC quarterback, an experienced passer. When we saw what happened to Boston College when he got hurt, the team struggled a little bit without him. But here's something I did not know. BC lost 4 of its top 5 receivers, a group that accounted for 102 receptions, 1,479 yards, and 9 touchdowns. In contrast, Rutgers' entire passing offense last year was 171 receptions, 1,586 yards, and 5 TDs. So Boston College essentially has lost the entire production of the Rutgers offense in the offseason. Will they be able to replace it? I mean, I think that's going to be a very big question for Boston College. And maybe if you're looking reason for hope for that game, that might be one. All right, Michigan, Cratch.
So Michael Dwumfor, listeners might be familiar with the name. He played at Scotch Plains Fanwood with Rashawn Gary, who I think everyone knows. Gary went to Paramus Catholic. Dwumfor went to DePaul. When he got to Michigan, I think there was kind of a perception that, he was sort of like, Rashawn Gary's buddy, and maybe they brought him in, to help kind of land Gary. And you think about all the Jersey kids who have gone to Michigan in recent years and really not had a lot of success on the field. Dwumfor has developed into a potential all Big Ten caliber defensive tackle. This could be a really big breakout year for him after Gary and a bunch of other guys on that defense graduated. The other thing I think is key, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan is 2-7 against Notre Dame, Michigan State, and Ohio State. All 3 of those teams are on the schedule this year. All 3 of those games are at home. This is the year Michigan has to make its move and win the Big Ten. If they don't do it now, you have to wonder if they're ever going to do it again. And I know that sounds kind of daunting and, dramatic, but, I mean, if Jim Harbaugh can't get it done, who's going to get it done?
Very true. Maryland, Sarge.
Yeah. Maryland's led by a new coach. Mike Lockley came over after a tumultuous 2018 season. He had some recent success as Alabama's play caller. Didn't really have a whole lot of success as a head coach over New Mexico. He's considered a strong recruiter, but that probably won't come into play right away. He has some talent to work with, but let's face it, this is a must-win for Rutgers. Every year that they play in the Big Ten, you're going to look at the bottom of the East Division. You're going to look at Indiana, Maryland. This is a game that they're going to have to win. Comes right at the beginning of October. Rutgers has had some success against Maryland in the last couple of years. They lost a year ago, but they won 2 of the 4 games before that since they joined the Big Ten together in 2014.
All right. That leads to Indiana, which is me. And here's a headline Rutgers fans will like from the Indianapolis Star. Indiana's football quarterback competition still has no winner, and time is running out. Time is running out. Who knew? That's the good news. The bad news, of course, one of the three, redshirt junior Peyton Ramsey, is already on pace to set most of the relevant passing records for the school. So Indiana is looking for an upgrade, not a competent passer, which is a vastly different situation, as we know, from the Scarlet Knights. One other point to make, that I've already made a dinner reservation at St. Elmo for 7 o'clock on the night of the game. And if there's a lightning storm, I'm just going to run outside holding up a steel metal pole and hope it strikes me. On that note, Minnesota, Cratch.
So a familiar face for Rutgers fans, Jim Panagos, former defensive line coach. He's now the defensive line coach on PJ Fleck's staff in Minnesota, and he's drawn rave reviews so far out of Minneapolis. Carter Coughlin, who's their star defensive end, maybe the best pass rusher in the conference, loved the guy. Talked my ear off in Chicago about how great Panagos has been for the position group. Now, Minnesota has 16 starters back. They finished last year strong, went 7-6, won a bowl game, beat Wisconsin, got Paul Bunyan's axe back. This is the sleeper candidate to win the Big Ten West. Don't think they're going to do it. I think the schedule's too difficult on the back end. But if someone's going to come out of nowhere like Northwestern a year ago, I think it's going to be the Gophers.
All right, Liberty. Why are they playing Liberty? Sarge, Liberty.
So Liberty is based in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's best known as the school presided by evangelist Jerry Falwell Jr. Jerry Falwell Jr. Little known, did you know, on the day that this game was announced in May 2017, Donald Trump was actually speaking at the school's commencement ceremony.
Wait, speaking of Rutgers commencement? I'm kidding.
No. He didn't. No.
How great would it be if Trump comes to the game?
Oh, my God. Shoot me. All right.
So Liberty is led by Hugh Freeze. He had a lot of success on the field at Ole Miss, but he left the program in disarray as a result of a multi-year NCAA punishment. He was hired last December. He has already anointed a quarterback named Buckshot Calvert.
That's not a real name.
Buckshot is his, I guess, his apparent nickname, but on NJ.com, throughout the season, his name will be Buckshot. He threw for 3,000 yards, 21 touchdowns for a 6-6 team, defied expectations a year ago. But by the time that Rutgers actually faces them, we could see a different quarterback. Auburn transfer Malik Willis, very talented. He applied for an NCAA waiver. There has been no word on whether or not that's been approved. But come October, this game could be a sneaky, dangerous game. I know Cratch has already predicted Rutgers to lose this game.
All right, Illinois, I've got them, and this is like the mirror image program, obviously, for Rutgers in the Big Ten West. A pivotal year for Lovie Smith, and just like Rutgers, wouldn't you know it, the Illini unveiled a new locker room, and another sign that the bottom feeders in the Big Ten know that the one thing they can do is throw money at a problem. It's also interesting that the Illini do not have a sure thing at quarterback either, but grad transfer Brandon Peters out of Michigan looks like the guy. And, of course, that'll be settled long before the Scarlet Knights and the Illini play. All right, Ohio State, Cratch.
Everyone knows Justin Fields, highly touted transfer from Georgia, starting quarterback. Montgomery High is Chris Chuganoff, who started his career at West Virginia, then went to Ohio State last year as a grad transfer with 2 years to play, played a little mop-up duty against Rutgers at the Horseshoe. He's probably in the mix to be the backup quarterback, competing with Gunnar Hoke, who transferred from Kentucky. So might get to see a Jersey guy on the field at SHI Stadium late in the season. And if something were to happen to Fields, Chuganoff could be in line to be the Buckeyes starter because he's the only guy in their quarterback room who has been in Ohio State before this offseason.
It's a shame his name's not Buckshot Chuganoff. It would be really good. All right, Michigan State, we have a trade. We have decided to trade. Sarge is trading Michigan State to Cratch because Cratch in his top 25, which you could have read on NJ.com, is he's really high on Michigan State. So, Cratch, tell us why. Michigan State, go.
All right, 7-6 last year. Offense was abysmal. We all saw it. Sarge, we were out there in East Lansing for the end of the season. But here's the thing. They bring back 9 offensive starters. Brian Lewerke, the quarterback's healthy. I think they're going to be better on offense. Their defense is going to be elite again with 8 starters back. They lost 6 games last year. 3 of those losses were by a field goal or less. The other 3 losses were one-score games in the fourth quarter. I just think that this is a team that's going to bounce back in a big way. And Mark D'Antonio is 30-13 in the month of November. They've got a pretty soft November with Rutgers, Maryland, Illinois, and the big one, Michigan, the game that I think is probably going to decide the Big Ten East.
All right, Penn State, finally, it's mine, and this is another, I wish I was counting, but another Big Ten program with an unsettled quarterback situation. Redshirt's Sean Clifford entered camp as the favorite for the job, but Jane Franklin loves the upside of freshman Will Fry. So this, again, will be long settled before it matters for Rutgers. But I think it's fair to dial down the expectations in Happy Valley, although by all indications, it looks like that Franklin finally has what might be his best collection of skill players, so we'll see if that matters. All right, that's our rundown. Good job, guys. I'm glad we did that. That was fun. Nice job. I feel like I learned something from you, especially about Buckshot Shuganoff, my new favorite player. I don't care if it's two people. All right, let's go straight into reader mail. And we do this every week. It's become a new feature. We really enjoy it. We're getting questions now from anyone who's involved in our Rutgers Insider program. You text us the day of the podcast, and we'll do our best to answer them. And we got about 10 this week that were excellent questions. So I'm going to dive right in and, we'll let you guys see what you think. But the first one, I think we're going to get this question a lot, so we might as well address it right now. If there is a coaching change this year, has the athletic and football program done enough from a talent, facilities, and culture standpoint to make this a desirable destination? And would we be able to open up the wallet a bit? I know this is an if question, Sarge, but it's going to be an issue if the team goes sideways. I mean, what do you think?
So it's a little premature, obviously. I will say this, that just based on precedent, Pat Hobbs has opened up the wallet to hire the baseball coach, Steve Owens, who I guess we're still crunching the numbers, but I believe he's certainly going to be in the top half of the Big Ten in salary. Same thing with men's soccer. He has been willing to spend on coaching staffs. As far as it being a desirable job, I will say this, okay? There has been some past success, certainly in the mid-2000s, of Rutgers turning the corner, being a perennial bowl team. Are they ever going to win the Big Ten East? Other people can argue that, but at Rutgers, I think there's certainly a measurement where you can actually go to bowls every year, and the fan base, for the most part, will be happy with that. And I think that's attainable. I think that's one of the reasons why it could be a desirable job just from, the outside looking in. And I'll say the third thing is Pat Hobbs has proven to be loyal. A lot of the entire fan base was looking to fire for Rutgers to fire Chris Ash a year ago. Pat Hobbs said this is my guy. He didn't rush the judgment. Some people still question that move, but from just a sheer coaching, outside perspective within the coaching fraternity, I'm sure that's going to be perceived as a good thing.
Cratch, anything to add?
I just think that you got to be worried if you get to this point, if that's the situation, this whole idea of, you're just going to go spend big bucks and get a coach that's worth, whatever you're going to pay. I just think if you look at the top 25, the top 30 coaching salaries in college football, forget about, the guy that the Harbaugh is, the guys, the top, Saban, Dabo and all that. It's a lot of coaches who built a program, had success, had interest from outside schools, and then their school kind of scrounge up the money, with all the energy and support that the winning has brought to kind of pay them and keep them happy and keep them in place. I just think it's a better route to get a guy like Jeff Brom and then be able to pay him what you need to pay him to keep him when Louisville comes knocking 2 or 3 years in, rather than to say, okay, we're just going to go spend $4 million a year. Because I think at that point, you're going to end up just overpaying to get some guy who maybe isn't the best fit or maybe isn't worth that amount of money.
I will say, just one last point, I will say it's going to be, if it does happen, it's going to be a fascinating few weeks in Piscataway and New Brunswick for that matter, because they've never had Rutgers. This is Rutgers' hello, welcome to big time athletics. When you're writing a check for what will be about $10 million, unless I'm wrong, $7.5 million for Ash plus the coaching staff, and then coming back and writing a check for $12 million or committing $12 million to your next coach or more, it's going to be fascinating. All right, next question. John McNulty was given a pass, how ironic, last year because of the goodwill he earned from his first stint at Rutgers, besides being multiple, what offensive system do you truly see them running, given the strength being 3 to 4 Big Ten quality running backs, not as much depth as tight ends as you'd like to see, and still a bunch of wide receivers still improving? And this is a really fascinating one, guys, because I love just kind of the story out of the summer that, all right, well, now we're going to be more spread style again. And it's just a constant shift in philosophies. And it's really a valid point. I mean, what is the system going to be? Is there going to be a system? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a spread, and by that, I think there's a lot of different versions of a spread. I think most fans are familiar with the RPO stuff, the gun run, where the quarterback is faking to the running back and has an option of running the ball. There will be some of that. We've seen that. I'm not divulging any secrets. We've seen it on the Big Ten Network. We've seen it on social media. There will be some of that, but I think I think they're not going to be reinventing the wheel. If it is Sikowski who wins the job, and I got news for people. McLean Carter is more of a pro style, pocket quarterback than he is a dual threat. So I think they're going to try to take advantage of both of those guys and keep them as pocket quarterbacks. Chris Ash has talked about that Sikowski has a little bit more mobility than people realize. Maybe he could run the ball a little bit more, but they're going to rely on the strength. The strength are those two running backs, Isaiah Pacheco and Raheem Blackshear. The offense is going to go through those two guys. They're going to run the ball. Sean McNulty had his druthers. He'd probably be running the ball 60% of the time, as long as it was effective. I think that's going to be the bread and butter. They're going to run a spread. I think they're going to rely on those two guys.
Your thoughts is do we have an offensive identity finally this year, or are we still just throwing things against the dartboard to see if it works?
I don't know if they have an offensive identity, but I think Sarge hit on all the kind of salient points. I think it's going to be a pro style, but it's going to be a little more spread out. And I think as the question mentioned, I think the blocking at tight end is going to probably leave a lot to be desired. I think you've got some guys with some potential. Henniston's still injured. Who knows when he's going to be on the field? But I just don't know if Lewis and Alimo are ready to be big-time, body movers at this point in their careers. So I think you might see Brandon Myers, the walk-on H-back, kind of fill that lead blocker role a little bit. But I think last year they were able to kind of pack it in a little bit more. I'm not saying that they got great blocking the tight ends, but they maybe had a little bit more. I think this year they're going to try to have to spread people out a little bit and try to find angles and creases with the run game.
All right, and then to wrap it up, we had 5 different questions, all different topics about how you get more people to games. And I think this all comes back to your story, Sarge. People are still talking about it. We had one of the readers were wondering about just the length of games. If the national trend, the fact that is keeping people away, because, I mean, let's face it, you're looking at a 4-hour experience and sometimes in these Big Ten games. Someone wanted to know if you could compare and contrast the amenities from different stadiums that compared to Rutgers, where there's a sense that, you're getting a better fan experience in Iowa or Nebraska. And I will say that for some of those newer stadiums, you're absolutely right. I mean, I haven't seen them all. I don't sit in the stands, but certainly, it's a better, you can just see in Nebraska or certainly Ohio State, some of the bigger stadiums that you get more stuff. And finally, someone else wanted to know how you get students to come to the games. And I think this is, a troubling question, because at one point, student attendance was really bad. It got really good when the team got good and it was part of the culture. If it starts slipping the other way, well, that's just another element of what you're losing that doesn't factor into what we're already talking about, season tickets being down. So I'm going to open it up to you guys just to talk in general about getting people to the games. Is there something that Rutgers can do other than winning that it's not doing?
Yeah, I will say one thing with regards to the students. I think it was probably a fan from Penn State, after my ticket story came out, noted that Penn State actually has sold more student tickets. I think they're well over 17,000 than Rutgers has in a season ticket base. And I think that fan was trolling, but I'm not pointing that out as a troll. I'm pointing that out as that speaks to the future. That speaks to the reason why Penn State is able to recruit and to sell its program is because they, not only do they sell out 100,000 seats now, but they're poised for future growth when it comes to future fans and their popularity. That is an issue. To your point, as far as I think I've been to most of the Big Ten stadiums. I don't know. I mean, I think, really it boils down to the product on the field. 1-11, I think, is the biggest, reason for their struggles. And even, 2 years ago when they had a little bit of success. They won some Big Ten games, 4-8. I don't know if that was enough for fans to all of a sudden start buying in and coming out in droves. I think when they start winning on the field, I think the attendance will improve.
Cratch, do you have any easy answers to this one, or is it just a matter of wins and losses?
I think wins and losses plays a big role in it. Obviously, I think kickoff. I mean, like as a media member, I love noon kickoffs, but I understand why fans don't like them. I think one thing I think Rutgers probably could be a little bit more. Like for instance, I was talking with someone inside Rutgers who said, fans at Rutgers complain about parking, but Rutgers probably has like more like by the stadium parking than most schools in the Big Ten. So I think that maybe a little bit more like, kind of push the positive they had. But the one thing I'll say is in terms – and this is not an issue just at Rutgers, but everywhere in college football you're seeing now, the games are just – one, they're too long. I think they've got to shorten the games. But two, the matchups are just not exciting people. I look at this schedule this year, like UMass, okay, maybe there'll be a little bit of – there's not a lot of buzz, but at least UMass is a team in the Northeast that might travel well. I think Monmouth next year, you're going to have a little bit of juice. But, Steve, you joked, like, why are they playing Liberty? I mean –
I really wasn't joking. Like, why are they playing Liberty?
No, I know, but, like, my point is, like I told people at Rutgers this, it's a horrible, mistake. I mean, if they had scheduled Army – for the 150th anniversary of college football, the place would be sold out, and people would be excited. And yeah, Army probably would come in and win, but that's life at this point. I think that's one of the big things going forward. Is if you're going to have 3 non-conference games, one of them is going to be a Power 5 team. I think you got to try your best to keep the Power 5 matchups, and Rutgers is doing this under Ashton Hobbs. Keep that confined to Temple. I mean, Temple's not a Power 5, but Temple, Boston College, Syracuse. Get Army and Navy back on the schedule. Try to play Monmouth. Try to play Delaware. Maybe schedule Villanova. And if you're going to have to go out and get sort of a group of 5 bye game, try to get someone that has a little bit of juice. Because I just think it's asking a lot to ask folks to kind of trudge out to Liberty in late October if the team's not doing well. But if they're playing Army, and you're a little creative and you tell Army, hey, we'll send a couple of buses up and bring as many of the cadets as you can, suddenly it becomes exciting.
I think two more points. I think there is a supply-demand problem. The fact they expanded the stadium, there's just so many tickets available that why would you possibly get – we talked about it earlier. Why would you get season tickets? And the second one is, and it comes back to a very basic thing, guys, and I've heard this from a ton of fans, you want to feel hope. You want to feel like, all right, it's a new Saturday. It's exciting. I'm packing up my car. I've got my tailgate. I'm going to go there. I want to feel like I'm going to be able to watch something. It's be exciting. That'll be good. They might not win, but we'll be in the game. And I think Rutgers has lost a lot of that over the last 3, 4, 5 years where, people are just going into this season with a sense of dread. And that makes it very hard to drag yourself to 7 football games. So I think that's a big factor in it. All right, guys, what else we got?
Steve, you could have given us that hope speech in like the Morgan Freeman Shawshank. That would have been great if you could have done that. I believe in a place called Hope.
You do it that way? A little date myself here with some politics? No?
I will say this, and this might be a little bit too big picture, but with regards, is it possible, Steve, and is it possible that the Rutgers fan base is 25,000? I know, they have this, 52,000 seat stadium, and when they were in their heyday, they were well over 40,000, and there was a so-called, waiting list for season tickets. But you look at stories from the 1960s, 1970s when they were pretty good, they were generating 25,000 fans. I mean, you look at like the attendance back then, you look at it now. I know, Rutgers officials like to point out 500,000 living alumni, but is it possible that their fan base is at 25,000 fan base, and when they're good, maybe they get up to 35, 40,000? But right now, is it just possible that their fan base is 25,000?
I think it's entirely possible. I think it could be lower than that. That the die-hard consumer fan base is about what you're seeing now for season tickets, and the fact that team got good and went into the Big Ten, and a lot of casual football fans bought tickets. and they've been turned away by what's happened the last few years, and you can't blame them. I think that's part of it. So if you don't have to do the math here to fill that stadium, you need those 15,000 diehards, and then you need to double that, and you need like 15,000 other people who are just kind of coming along. They're new fans. They're excited. They're okay. Let's try to buy some tickets. And then if you get 15,000 students, all right, well, you got a good crowd, And right now they're not getting the casual fans. They're losing a lot of their core base, and the student attendance is down. And that's 3 strikes. That's what we're seeing on Saturdays. All right. So any other points to make, guys, before we sign off? You're good. I think it's a good show. This is like the penultimate. Next week, I think we're going to have a lot of answers. We're going to have most of the answers to our questions. We will do our predictions and previews, which I know people are just, losing sleep over, how many games James Kratz is going to pick them to win this year. And we'll have a really big show before, our last week before the season opener. Signing off from the Rutgers Rant, Steve Politi, Keith Sargent, James Kratz. Thank you so much for listening.